"You've walked these hills your whole life," she told the shepherd, "but you've never seen them until now." Elias had walked the hills all his life. Every morning before the sun rose, he would guide his small flock across the soft rolling hills that stretched endlessly in every direction. He knew every stone, every narrow path, and every hidden stream. The wind carried familiar scents, the sharp smell of fresh grass, the earthy smell of wet soil, and the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers that bloomed here and there. The hills were his world, and he thought he had seen every part of it. Yet there was always a feeling he could not shake. As he guided his sheep along the ridge near the eastern valley, he paused to rest. The view was beautiful, yet something inside him whispered that he had not truly seen the hills. He could feel it in the quiet moments, when the wind touched his face and the birds flew overhead in perfect patterns. It was as if the hills held secrets, waiting for someone to notice them. That morning was no different. The sky was pale gold, and the sun was just beginning to climb above the horizon, casting long shadows across the hills. Elias adjusted his cloak and checked his flock. The sheep moved lazily, nibbling at the grass, unaware of the strange sense of anticipation that hung in the air. He shook his head. "Perhaps I am imagining it," he thought, turning to climb the small ridge that led to the northern pastures. As he crested the ridge, he noticed something unusual. A figure stood alone in the distance, near the edge of a grove of twisted, silver-leaved trees. Elias squinted. The figure was tall and thin, wearing a long, flowing cloak that shimmered faintly in the morning light. It was not unusual to see travelers, but there were no roads leading here, and the figure moved with a grace that made him pause. "Hello?" Elias called, his voice steady despite a flutter of curiosity in his chest. The figure turned, and a gentle smile spread across her face. She had dark hair that fell in waves, eyes that seemed to change color with the light, and an air of calm confidence. "Good morning, shepherd," she said. Her voice was soft, yet it carried easily on the wind. "I have been waiting for you." Elias frowned. "Waiting for me? I don't know you. Who are you?" She stepped closer, her cloak brushing the grass. "My name is Ayla. I have traveled far to meet someone who has walked these hills his whole life, and yet someone who has never truly seen them." Elias blinked. He had heard stories of wise travelers, of people who knew strange truths about the world. He did not know what to make of her words. "I do not understand," he said cautiously. "I know these hills better than anyone. I have walked every path, every valley. How could I not have seen them?" Ayla reached into a small pouch at her waist and pulled out a tiny orb. It was smooth, about the size of an apple, and it shimmered with colors that seemed impossible. Soft blues, greens, and golds, shifting as though the light inside it moved on its own. She held it out to him. "You will see," she said. "Not with your eyes alone, but with your mind. You will understand what has always been here, waiting." Elias hesitated. He had seen strange things in stories, but never in his simple, quiet life. Yet something in her presence made him trust her. Perhaps it was the calm in her voice, or the certainty in her eyes. He reached out and took the orb. The moment his fingers touched it, a warmth spread through his hand, traveling up his arm and settling in his chest. The hills around him seemed to shimmer. The grass beneath his feet pulsed faintly with light, and the air itself felt alive. He blinked, unsure if it was real. What is this?" he whispered. Ayla smiled. "It is a way of seeing what is always there but hidden from most humans. You will see the energy, the life, the connections that exist in these hills. The hills have stories. They have watched your people for generations. And now you will understand them as they truly are." Elias felt a mixture of wonder and fear. He had never believed in magic, and yet what he saw was not magic. It was something else. The hills were alive in a way he had never imagined. Streams glowed faintly, tracing paths that wound through hidden valleys. Trees seemed to bend slightly as if to greet him. Birds and small creatures moved with patterns that were beautiful, precise, and almost musical. He stepped forward, the orb warm in his hand, and the hills seemed to respond. A breeze picked up, carrying whispers of sound, faint murmurs, like the hills themselves were speaking, but in a language he did not yet understand. He could feel the energy of the land, the flow of life, and everything around him. The sheep noticed it too, standing quietly as if sensing the change. "Is this real?" Elias asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," Ayla said softly. "It has always been real. Humans rarely notice it because you focus on what you can touch and measure, but the hills, the wind, the rivers, They have always been more than they seem. You are the first in generations to see them clearly." He walked slowly, letting the orb guide him. Each step revealed something new. Small animals that were invisible before now darted through the grass. Stones vibrated faintly with hidden energy, and even the sunlight seemed to shimmer differently, highlighting patterns in the hills that he had never noticed. For hours, Elias wandered. He climbed hills he had known all his life and found hidden valleys and secret groves. He laughed in amazement when he saw the ordinary and extraordinary ways. A small pond shimmered like liquid crystal, reflecting not only the sky but the life energy flowing through the hills. Flowers glowed softly, their petals opening and closing in patterns that resembled music notes. By late afternoon, he was exhausted but exhilarated. He sat on a smooth stone, the orb resting in his lap. "I have never seen anything like this," he admitted. "All my life, and I never knew." Isla knelt beside him. "Seeing is the first step. Understanding comes next. The hills have always been alive, Elias, and humans, you have a gift. You can connect with them in ways most cannot. You can learn, you can teach, and you can protect. This is only the beginning." Elias looked at her, a mixture of awe and determination in his eyes. "Teach me," he said. "I want to understand. I want to see everything." Isla smiled again, her eyes bright with quiet excitement. "Very well. But remember, seeing is not enough. You must learn to feel, to listen, and to respect what you find. The hills will guide you, if you let them, and soon others may see as you do. But that comes later. First you must walk, and truly see for yourself." The sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky with colors Elias had never noticed, soft pinks and purples that seemed to glow with life. He stood, feeling the pulse of the hills beneath his feet, and took a deep breath. For the first time he did not feel small in this vast, familiar world. He felt connected, alive, and ready. As they walked together back toward his village, Elias realized that the hills were no longer ordinary. Every slope, every stone, every tree had a story, and he had only begun to understand them. For the first time in his life, Elias truly saw the hills. The next morning Elias woke before dawn, as he always did, but this time he did not feel the same routine weight in his chest. Instead there was excitement, a kind of energy that pulsed in rhythm with the hills themselves. The orb lay beside him on the wooden table in his small cottage, glowing faintly in the dim light. He reached for it and held it again, feeling the warmth spread through his hand. Isla was already waiting outside. She stood at the edge of the field, watching the first golden rays of the sun touch the hills. She smiled when she saw him. "You are ready," she said simply. "Today you will see more than you have ever imagined." Elias followed her silently, letting the orb guide him. With every step, the familiar paths of his youth transformed. The ordinary grass swayed as if whispering secrets, and the streams glimmered with soft silver currents that he could never have noticed before. Small, delicate creatures peeked from behind rocks and trees, their translucent bodies glowing faintly in the morning light. "How is this possible?" Elias asked, marveling at the hidden life around him. "I have walked these hills 1,000 times, and I have never seen this." Isla glanced at him, her expression calm but thoughtful. "Most humans see only what they expect to see. The world hides its deeper truths until someone is ready to notice. You are ready, Elias." They walked in silence for a while, letting the orb guide them along a path that wound through a dense grove. The trees here were taller than any he had known, their trunks smooth and silver, their leaves glowing faintly with internal light. Small birds with crystalline feathers darted from branch to branch, singing in patterns that reminded Elias of music he had never heard but somehow understood. "Everything has a rhythm," Isla said. "The hills, the trees, the rivers, even the smallest creatures follow it. Humans usually miss it. But you, Elias, you can feel it." Elias closed his eyes and focused. He could feel it. Soft pulses running beneath the earth, flowing through the streams and radiating from the trees. It was a gentle, steady vibration, like a heartbeat. He realized that everything in these hills was connected, part of a single living system. As they continued, the orb began to shift its colors, showing patterns he had never imagined. Hidden paths opened before him, revealing valleys and cliffs he had never noticed. Small glowing flowers formed delicate lines across the hills, almost like messages written in light. "Are these messages?" Elias asked. "Not exactly," Isla replied. "They are signs of life, of balance. The hills speak to those who listen. You will learn to read them." By midday, They reached a hidden valley, surrounded by tall cliffs covered in glowing moss. A small waterfall tumbled into a crystal-clear pond, and the water shimmered with energy that seemed alive. Elias knelt by the edge, peering into the depths. Tiny shapes moved beneath the surface, creatures that looked like fish, but their bodies were transparent and their movements precise, almost deliberate, like they were aware of him. "Everything here has a purpose," Isla said. "Even what you cannot see at first is important. The hills have always protected this balance, guiding life quietly, patiently." Elias reached out and touched the water. A gentle warmth spread through his fingers, and he could feel the energy of the valley, the life that pulsed through it. He gasped. "It's alive," he whispered. "Yes," Isla said softly, "but not just alive in the way you think. The hills, the rivers, the creatures, they all form a network of life. Humans rarely notice it, but you can. And you can learn from it." They spent hours exploring the hidden valley. Elias learned to watch the subtle movements of the trees, to notice how the wind carried messages from one hill to another, and to understand the patterns of the glowing creatures. Every step revealed new mysteries. He realized that the hills he had known all his life were far richer than he had ever imagined. As the sun reached its highest point, Elias sat on a smooth rock, taking a break. "I feel different," he admitted. "I have walked these hills every day, yet I never knew how alive they are. How did I miss this for so long?" Isla smiled. "Because most humans are taught to look, but not to see. You, Elias, are learning to notice the invisible, to perceive the hidden. That is a rare gift." Elias felt a swell of pride mixed with humility. He had always thought of himself as an ordinary shepherd, tending his sheep and living a quiet life. But now he felt as if the hills had chosen him for something greater, as if they had been waiting for someone to finally understand them. They continued their journey, moving deeper into the hills. The orb led them to a narrow canyon, where the walls shimmered with hidden energy. Elias leaned close to the stone and pressed his hand against it. The rock pulsed gently under his touch, as if recognizing him. Tiny cracks glowed with light, forming intricate patterns like constellations. He could feel the flow of energy moving through the canyon, guiding him, teaching him to notice what was invisible to ordinary eyes. "This is incredible," Elias said, his voice trembling. "I never imagined everything is connected. The hills, the trees, the rivers, even the creatures, it's all one." Isla nodded. "Yes, and humans have the power to understand this, but it requires patience, observation, and respect. You must walk with care, and you must listen. The hills have stories, Elias, stories that go back longer than your people can imagine. And now, you are beginning to hear them." Elias felt a strange sense of responsibility. He had always thought of himself as a simple man, living a simple life. But now, he realized that he could do more. He could learn from the hills and perhaps one day share this knowledge with others. He could help humans see the world as it truly was, full of wonder, full of hidden life, full of energy and connection. As the afternoon sun began to lower, they arrived at a plateau overlooking a wide valley. The view was breathtaking. Streams twisted through the land like ribbons of light, forests glimmered with hidden energy, and distant hills shimmered in colors Elias had never seen. Small creatures moved across the valley floor, leaving trails of faint light behind them, like stars scattered on the ground. Elias sank to his knees, overwhelmed. I never knew any of this existed. All my life I thought I had seen everything. But I was blind. Ayla knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Most humans are blind to what surrounds them, Elias. They see only the surface. But now you see, and seeing is the first step. Understanding comes next. You have the gift to connect with this world, to learn from it, and to protect it. But that is a journey, not a single day's lesson." Elias nodded, his mind racing with questions and ideas. He wanted to learn everything, to understand the patterns, the energy flows, the hidden life that had always been there. And yet, he also realized that this was only the beginning. There was so much more to see, so much more to discover. As the sun dipped behind the far hills, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Elias felt a deep sense of wonder. For the first time, he understood that the world was far richer and more complex than he had ever imagined. The hills he had walked every day, the land he had thought he knew, had hidden layers waiting to be discovered. He stood and turned to Ayla, determination shining in his eyes. "I want to learn everything. I want to see it all. Show me the hidden world. Teach me to understand it." Ayla smiled, her eyes reflecting the colors of the valley. "Very well, Elias. But remember, this is a journey, not a race. The hills will guide you, and you must walk with care. Patience, observation, and respect. These are the keys. You have begun to see, but that takes time. Elias held the orb tightly, feeling the warmth and energy flowing through it. He looked out over the valley, his heart swelling with excitement and wonder. For the first time in his life, he understood that the world was far greater than he had imagined. And he was ready to see it, truly see it, with new eyes and an open heart. As night fell, the hills glowed faintly, alive with energy and hidden life. Elias knew that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more lessons, and more mysteries to unravel. The hills he had walked his whole life were no longer ordinary. They were alive, speaking to him, guiding him, and revealing secrets that had been waiting for generations. Elias went to sleep that night with a sense of purpose and wonder. The hills had changed, and so had he. He had begun to see the hidden beauty of the world, and he knew that this was only the start of an extraordinary journey. Elias woke before the first light again, but this morning excitement mingled with a strange sense of responsibility. The hills no longer felt like mere land to him. They were alive, their energy flowing beneath every stone, every tree, every stream. He held the orb tightly, feeling its warmth, and looked toward the grove where Ayla was waiting. "Good morning, Elias," Ayla greeted him, her cloak catching the early sunlight. "Today we will explore deeper. You will see not just the hills, but the life within them, and perhaps how it connects to your people." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. He felt ready, though he did not fully understand what awaited him. The orb pulsed softly in his hand, guiding their steps along paths hidden from ordinary eyes. The hills seemed to bend and shift with each movement, revealing valleys and ridges he had never noticed, streams that glimmered with silver light and flowers that opened only when he looked directly at them. As they walked, Ayla spoke quietly. "The hills are alive, Elias, but they are patient. They do not reveal themselves to every human, only to those willing to see. You are beginning to understand them, but there is more. Life is connected here in ways you cannot yet imagine. Every creature, every plant, every stone, each has a role." Elias listened, amazed, as they reached a narrow canyon. The walls glowed faintly with the orb's light, and the air hummed with energy. Small creatures moved along the rocks and cliffs, leaving trails of glowing dust that shimmered in patterns like constellations. Elias knelt to examine them. Each step, each movement seemed intentional, like part of a hidden dance he had never seen before. "Are these creatures aware of us?" he asked. "Perhaps," Ayla replied, "but awareness is not like yours. The hills themselves guide all life here. The creatures follow, respond, and adapt. Humans are rarely part of this, but you can connect. You can learn to move with them, not against them." Elias closed his eyes and let his senses expand. He could feel the faint pulse of the rocks beneath his knees, the gentle vibration of the wind through the canyon, and the soft hum of energy from the stream that wound its way below. He realized the hills had a rhythm, a subtle heartbeat, and he could follow it if he focused. For hours they wandered. Elias discovered hidden groves where the trees communicated with one another through light and movement. The streams carried tiny glowing creatures that cleaned and nurtured the water, while flowers opened in response to their passage. Even the air seemed alive, carrying soft whispers, almost like a language he could almost understand, but not quite. At one point, they reached a plateau where the view stretched for miles. The valleys below were alive with light and motion, unseen patterns that pulsed with the hill's energy. Elias gasped, I never imagined this." "It's like the hills themselves are breathing, moving, living." Ayla nodded. "Yes. And humans, when they learn to see, can become part of this network. You are beginning to understand not just the life of the hills, but how it connects to you. And someday others will see too." Elias thought about his village, about the people who had walked these hills for generations without noticing a single hidden truth. He realized that much of life went unnoticed, that humans often saw only what they wanted to see, and yet he felt a growing desire to share what he had learned. But how could he do that without frightening or confusing them? They moved on, descending into a hidden valley that seemed untouched by time. The air here shimmered with energy, and strange plants with crystalline leaves swayed gently. Tiny creatures with wings like glass hovered near glowing flowers, feeding and communicating in delicate patterns. Elias watched in awe, feeling more connected than ever before. "This place, it's perfect," he whispered. "Everything is working together. The hills, the water, the creatures. It's all one." Ayla smiled. "Exactly. The hills are a network, a living system. And humans, if they learn to see, can understand their place within it. They can learn to work with life, not against it. That is the gift of seeing beyond the ordinary." As they explored, Elias noticed that the orb pulsed brighter when he focused on understanding the energy around him. He realized that it responded not just to touch, but to his attention, his awareness, and his respect for the hills. The more he listened, the more clearly the patterns of life revealed themselves. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small grove where the trees formed a natural dome. Light filtered through the leaves, casting patterns on the ground that shifted like moving water. Elias sat on a smooth rock, watching the creatures interact with the plants. Tiny lights blinked and shimmered, and he could sense the flow of energy from one life form to another. "I feel like I can understand them," Elias said. "Not with words, but somehow. I can feel their purpose, their movement, their connection." "Good," Isla said. "This is how the hills teach. Humans have a unique ability to observe, to reflect, and to adapt. You are learning not just to see, but to understand. And that understanding is what will allow you to connect your people to this hidden world." Elias thought of his village again. He imagined showing others the beauty he now saw, teaching them to notice what had always been there, but he also understood the responsibility. Humans had the power to change the world, but they also had the power to harm it. He had to learn patience, observation, and respect before sharing these truths. The orb guided them next to a cliffside where a river flowed far below. The water glowed faintly with energy, and Elias noticed small creatures moving beneath the surface, shaping the flow and keeping it clean. He realized that even the simplest life forms had roles and responsibilities, contributing to the balance of the ecosystem. "It's amazing," Elias said. "Every part matters, no matter how small. Even the tiniest creatures, they all have a purpose." "Yes," Isla said. "And humans can learn from this. You are beginning to see not just the hills, but the principles that govern life itself. Cooperation, balance, and awareness. These are what keep the hills alive, and these are what humans can embrace if they choose." As evening approached, they made camp near a grove of glowing trees. Elias felt tired but exhilarated. He had seen wonders beyond his imagination, and he knew that his journey was only beginning. The fire, the orb beside him, and reflected on what he had learned. "The hills, they are alive," he whispered, "and they have been waiting for someone to notice." Isla nodded.
"Yes, and now you have noticed."
"But seeing is not enough. You must listen, learn, and teach. That is the next step. You have begun to connect, but true understanding comes only with time and attention." Elias felt a deep sense of purpose. He realized that the hills had chosen him not just to see, but to bridge the gap between humans and the hidden world around them. The orb, the energy, the creatures, they were all part of a system that humans could participate in if they learned to observe and respect it. As night fell, the hills glowed softly, casting gentle light across the valley. The creatures settled, and the energy of the land pulsed like a quiet heartbeat. Elias felt calm, connected, and determined. He knew that tomorrow would bring more lessons, more discoveries, and more opportunities to understand the hills and their hidden life. He closed his eyes, listening to the whispers of the hills, feeling their rhythm, and knowing that he was no longer an ordinary shepherd. He was a student of the hills, a guardian of their secrets, and a bridge between the hidden life of the world and the humans who walked upon it. Elias knew that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges in teaching others to see, in helping his village understand what he had discovered. But he also knew that humans had an incredible capacity for learning, for curiosity, and for connection. The hills had chosen him because they sensed that he could help others understand, and he would rise to that task. As the stars appeared above, twinkling faintly in patterns that seemed to mirror the glowing trails of the creatures below, Elias felt a sense of peace. He had begun to see, to understand, and to connect. And he knew that this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one that would change him, the hills, and perhaps, one day, all of humanity. The sun rose slowly over the hills, painting them in shades of gold and amber. Elias stood on a ridge overlooking his village, the orb warm in his hand. He had spent weeks exploring with Isla, learning the hidden life of the hills, the energy flowing through the streams, the glowing patterns of the plants, and the delicate dance of unseen creatures. Each day had brought new discoveries, and now he felt ready to return to his people. Isla stood beside him, her calm presence reassuring. "Are you ready, Elias?" she asked. Elias nodded. "I am. I want to show them what I have learned, what I have seen. They deserve to see the hills as they truly are." Isla smiled. "Remember, patience is key. Humans are slow to notice what they cannot touch. Lead gently, and they will begin to understand. They descended into the village quietly, the orb glowing softly to guide their steps. The villagers were beginning their daily routines, mending fences, tending gardens, and feeding animals. He noticed the small rhythms of life, the way the villagers moved, how the animals responded to their touch, and the subtle energy of the land beneath their feet. Everything was connected. He approached the town square and called out gently, "Friends, I have something to show you. Come with me." The villagers looked up, curious and cautious. They knew Elias as a simple shepherd, someone who had lived quietly all his life. They were surprised by the urgency in his voice. One by one they followed him, leaving their daily work behind. Elias led them to a small hill just outside the village. He held the orb and let its light shine, illuminating the hidden life of the land. Slowly the villagers gasped. Streams that had always seemed ordinary shimmered with silver light. Flowers glowed softly, opening in response to their gaze. Small creatures that had always been invisible now danced along the paths, leaving trails of faint illumination. "What? What is this?" one villager whispered. Elias smiled gently. "This is the world you have walked all your lives, but never truly seen. These hills, they are alive. Every stream, every tree, every creature, they are all connected, and we are part of it." The villagers looked around in awe. Some were skeptical, but most could feel the energy around them, the subtle hum of life beneath their feet. Children laughed as tiny glowing creatures flitted past them. Elders knelt to touch the glowing streams, marveling at the patterns in the water. Slowly, the fear of the unknown melted, replaced by wonder and curiosity. Elias guided them up the hill, showing them hidden valleys and glowing plants. He taught them to listen to the whispers of the wind, to notice the patterns of the trees, and to feel the rhythm of life beneath their feet. The villagers began to understand that the world they had thought was ordinary was far more extraordinary than they had ever imagined. This is incredible," said one of the elders. "I have walked these hills all my life, and I never knew they were alive like this." "Yes," Elias replied. "They have always been alive. And now we can learn from them. We can move with the hills, not against them. We can respect life and understand our place within it." Isla watched silently, proud of Elias. He had grown from a simple shepherd into a teacher, a guide, and a bridge between humans and the hidden life of the world. His patience, curiosity, and respect had allowed him to see what others could not.
As the villagers explored, Elias realized something important. Seeing was only the beginning.
Understanding required observation, attention, and care. He taught them to move slowly, to notice the smallest details, and to respect the life around them. The hills began to respond. Streams glowed brighter, flowers opened wider, and the creatures moved with confidence, no longer afraid of the humans who had learned to see. By midday, the village was transformed. The hills, once familiar and ordinary, were now alive with wonder. The villagers worked together to care for the land, moving with awareness of the hidden life around them. They built small markers to show where glowing plants grew, protected streams that pulsed with energy, and watched the delicate creatures with fascination rather than fear. Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had begun to see the world with new eyes, and now he was helping others do the same. The hills, the streams, the creatures, all of it was part of a living system, and humans had the ability to understand and protect it. As evening approached, the villagers gathered on the hilltop to watch the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of pink, orange, and violet, reflecting the glowing energy of the land below. Children pointed excitedly at the glowing streams. Elders marveled at the patterns in the flowers, and everyone felt a deep connection to the hills that had been waiting for them all their lives. Elias held the orb high, its light mingling with the colors of the sunset. "The hills have always been here, guiding us, teaching us," he said. "Now we can listen. Now we can learn. And if we continue to care, to observe, and to respect, the hills will continue to reveal their secrets to us." Isla stepped forward. "You have done well, Elias. You have learned, and you have shared. This is the true gift of seeing, understanding, and connection. The hills have chosen you for your patience, your respect, and your heart, and now your people can begin to see too." Elias looked around at his village, at the faces glowing with wonder and joy. He felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of purpose he had never known. The journey had changed him, but it had also changed the hills, and the hills had changed his people. The connection was complete. As night fell, the hills glowed faintly, and the villagers returned to their homes with new eyes. Children whispered excitedly about the glowing streams and the tiny creatures they had seen. Adults spoke softly, sharing their amazement and wonder. And in the quiet moments, everyone could feel the gentle pulse of life beneath their feet, a rhythm that connected them to the hills, the sky, and each other. Elias stayed on the hilltop, watching the stars appear one by one. He thought about the weeks he had spent with Ayla, learning to see the hidden life of the hills. He realized that the journey was far from over. There would always be more to discover, more to learn, and more to understand. But he also knew that he was ready. The hills had taught him patience, observation, and respect. They had shown him that life was connected in ways humans often overlooked, and now he had shared that knowledge with his people, helping them to see, truly see, the world around them. Ayla placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are ready to walk the hills on your own, Elias. But remember, the journey never ends. Life is always moving, always changing. The hills will continue to teach you if you remain open, if you continue to see." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude.
Thank you, Ayla. I will continue to learn.
"And I will help my people learn too. We will walk the hills with care, and we will see the world as it truly is." Ayla smiled, and then, as quietly as she had appeared, she began to walk away, disappearing into the glowing hills. Elias watched her go, feeling a sense of completion and new beginnings all at once. He turned back to the village, the orb glowing softly in his hand. He knew that the hills had changed him, that they had changed his people, and that they would continue to reveal their secrets to those who were ready to see. The ordinary world he had once known was now extraordinary, full of hidden life, energy, and connection. Elias walked down the hill, ready to share the knowledge, ready to guide his village, and ready to continue the journey. The hills stretched before him, alive and vibrant, and for the first time he felt that he truly belonged. He had walked these hills his whole life, but now he had finally seen them. 10 word count, approximately 1,250 words.